Hey all you groovy people, I'm gonna do something a little bit different in this video. I hate to be a cynic, but for some reason, I'm just not feeling it for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. I know. You can call me a hater, you can call me a downer, you can call me this, you can call me that, you can call me whatever you want. I'm just not feeling it for these Avengers movies. In fact, I'm just not feeling it for any big, bombastic Marvel event. In this video, I'm gonna go over why Marvel's event fatigue is so real, and hopefully after watching this video, I won't ruin your enthusiasm for the future of the MCU. But before we move on, please be sure to give a like and subscribe to Reverb Comics. You do not want to miss out on our awesome content. Alright, so who knows? I might not be the only one feeling this way. Maybe everyone's been pretty fed up with the messes the MCU has been pushing out lately. And don't get me wrong, there's been some saving graces. Deadpool and Wolverine was a banger, Daredevil Born Again is fantastic, and there's some promising things coming along with RDJ coming back to the MCU as Doctor Doom. But for some reason, I'm just not feeling it with these next Avengers movies. After my latest existential crisis and late night sessions of binge drinking, I came to a realization. The MCU does not have a lot of tricks up its sleeve. Now let's think way back to Marvel Phase 1. When the Avengers first came together, that was a really big deal. I remember as a 15-year-old kid, just watching these characters interact with each other was exciting. Now it's just something that we all take for granted. Nowadays, it's no big deal for Thor to interact with Spider-Man or whatever Marvel character. So what did Kevin Feige and the people at Marvel do next? They relied on this awesome drug called nostalgia. Instead of relying on people's enthusiasm for their fan favorite characters to team up, they got old school Marvel heroes to make their big return. Deadpool and Wolverine was the best example of this. Bringing back Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, Chris Evans' Human Torch, Jennifer Gardner's Elektra, and Wesley Snipes' Blade brought people back to their early childhood or adult days in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Spider-Man No Way Home also traded really hard on this. Bringing back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield brought a lot of people back to a time where Spider-Man was just doing his own thing and not referencing the Avengers whatsoever. Now, feel free to call me crazy, but I don't think this trick will last for long. I say this because Marvel pretty much already banked on all these classic OG Marvel actors returning to the big screen. There's rumors that Nick Cage's Ghost Rider is returning for Avengers Secret Wars, and of course we have the classic X-Men from the 2000s returning to Avengers Doomsday. James Marsden, the guy who plays Cyclops, looks like he has not aged, so bringing him back is a pretty smart move. And who knows, bringing someone like Halle Berry back as Storm would be a fun surprise. But I think we can all agree that they used up a lot of bankable star power bringing back Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, Tobey's Spidey, and Wesley Snipes' Blade. The only trick Marvel has up its sleeve right now is relying on surprise cameos. And I'd argue that it's been used up a lot already. It was fun seeing Falcon show up in Ant-Man, it was fun seeing Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner at the end of Shang-Chi, but around the time of Captain America Brave New World, it wasn't fun anymore seeing Bucky Barnes show up to make a cameo. Now, don't get me wrong, crossovers are fun, surprise cameos are really fun. Bringing back OG Marvel actors is awesome. But unless you have some really engaging storytelling to complement stuff like this, people will stop caring. Which leads me to my next point. After my next existential crisis and latest session of binge drinking, I came to another realization. Marvel needs to master the art of low stakes once again. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I'll use episode 3 of Daredevil Born Again to explain. Like most of you know, Daredevil is not this larger-than-life superhero. He's a street-level guy who mostly fights crime in Hell's Kitchen. In episode 3, Matt's fighting corrupt police officers not just as a vigilante, but as a lawyer. In the case of Hector Ayala, otherwise known as the White Tiger, Matt had to defend him when he was framed for killing a New York City police officer. The White Tiger fought 2 cops after he found them beating up a confidential informant. Unfortunately for Hector, things got out of control when a cop fell onto a railway and got killed by an oncoming subway train. In the middle of Hector Ayala's trial, Matt needed the confidential informant as a key witness to attest to what actually happened. The corrupt cops on the stand lied and said that Hector Ayala showed up and assaulted them. The confidential informant needed to show up to attest that Hector Ayala defended him after getting mugged by the 2 police officers. When the confidential informant was on his way to the trial, he was being tailed by, you guessed it, the crooked cops. Now to me, what was fascinating about this sequence is that even though the stakes were low, I was on the edge of my seat. Even though Matt was not dealing with this alien lunatic who wanted to wipe out half of all life in the universe, I still cared. Cause you know why? The storytelling made me care. I wanted Matt to win the case because of all the crappy things he went through. Right when things started to work out for Matt, Bullseye killed his best friend Foggy Nelson, and his relationship with Karen Page just completely fell apart. The only 2 people who actually cared about him left his life. I wanted Matt to persevere and win. I also wanted Hector Ayala to win his case. Even though he didn't get that much screen time, right off the bat we got a sense of just how outstanding the guy truly is. He stepped in and risked his own safety to protect a guy from getting mugged. And he did that without his tiger amulet that gives him superhuman strength. And throughout the trial, multiple witnesses attested to Hector Ayala's character. Everyone kept going on about how thankful they were for White Tiger showing up to save their lives. And it stung when the White Tiger got killed at the end of episode 3. The guy went through hell, made a positive impact on the people around him, and to see him get killed like that just stung. It's kind of amazing how Daredevil got me to care about the characters that were not in charge of saving the universe. Even though that case was inconsequential compared to a Thanos level threat, I still cared. Marvel's gotta go back to that phase 1 and phase 2 structure where they took their time with their characters. Like or hate Iron Man, Thor, or Captain America, we spent a lot of time with those characters and saw them fail over and over again until they became the best versions of themselves. Hell, they even took their time with Ant-Man. That first Ant-Man movie was just quality storytelling. Like in sports, if things aren't going right, you gotta go back to the basics. There's nothing wrong with Marvel going back to the basics and using that approach going forward. The Arrow TV show took that approach and they rebounded really well after their disastrous 4th season. After they reached a low point with that season, they took a second, reflected on what worked and what didn't, and started making meaningful changes. When production for season 5 came around, the writers realized that the first season worked way better than the 4th season. So they did what they did in the first season. They took inspiration from Christopher Nolan's Batman films, and they made the Green Arrow a grounded vigilante once again, except during the crossover event. And when season 5 came around, they delivered an awesome season of storytelling. Marvel's just gotta go back to the basics. They gotta figure out who they want on their next Avengers roster and focus on those characters. They gotta focus on getting us to care about the new Avengers. I gotta be honest, I only care about Daredevil, Spider-Man, and Shang-Chi at this point. If the new Avengers roster consists of, let's say, Kate Bishop's Hawkeye, Luke Cage, or Spider-Woman, focus on those characters. Don't focus on characters that probably won't see the light of day anymore. Which leads me to my next point. Marvel, you gotta stop making things so complicated. You know, like or hate Marvel Phase 1 and 2, they were pretty straightforward. Yeah, Marvel was pretty conservative with their storytelling. It wasn't that weird or comic booky until Guardians of the Galaxy, but its biggest saving grace was that it was really easy to follow. In Marvel Phase 1, we had Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, the Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man 2, which all led up to the Avengers. Then slowly but surely, Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy was added into the mix. Then we had our sequels, and many other characters like Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and Captain Marvel were added into the mix as well. Then things ended with the Infinity Saga, and the Multiverse Saga for the MCU officially started. Except, well, the Multiverse Saga wasn't really a new start for the MCU. It still traded really heavy on the Infinity Saga. Shows like WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Hawkeye would pretty much make no sense unless you're caught up with Marvel Phase 1, 2, and 3. And new characters like Ms. Marvel, Moon Knight, and Ironheart were introduced. And let's be real, their fate is pretty much up in the air. Nobody knows if they're coming back for Avengers Secret Wars or Avengers Doomsday. Movies like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness made no sense unless you watched the Disney Plus shows. And even though Deadpool and Wolverine was fantastic, that movie made no sense unless you were a passionate Marvel fan. And don't get me wrong, it's really cool that the old Sony and Fox Marvel movies are now canon. It's just that adding more stuff into the mix when things are already really confusing adds fuel to the fire. Oh, and the Netflix Marvel shows are officially canon to the MCU now. I don't necessarily think that it's the excess content that's the problem. I just think that the storytelling became so dependent on past Marvel stories. Hell, the new Captain America movie traded heavy on plot points from the Incredible Hulk, a movie that came out 15 years ago. And even shows like Loki, even though it was fantastic, got pretty complicated. Instead of the story being about the Loki we've come to know through the Infinity Saga, this show's about an entirely different Loki plucked from the Phase 1 timeline. Listen, I'm not trying to confuse you even more here. The point I'm trying to make is that things got to be really confusing. Going forward, I think that Marvel should really focus on standalone projects that don't rely heavy on past events in the MCU. To be fair, Marvel ran into a lot of bad luck. Losing Chadwick Boseman was nothing short of a tragedy. And the negotiations Kevin Feige had to make with Sony probably complicated Spidey's future in the MCU. The fix is simple though. Go back to the basics. Master the art of low stakes and stop making things so complicated for new, casual, and hardcore Marvel fans. I think it's more than fair to say that the MCU needs a soft reboot with Secret Wars and Doomsday. I think it would also help if the MCU tried a bit more bolder storytelling. I'd be all for Marvel stories where characters are put into situations where they have to make tough choices. Based off the rumors that I came across, it looks like Mr. Fantastic is going to have to make a very tough choice. I may be wrong about this, so take this with a grain of salt. it sounds like Galactus wants to take out Franklin Richards, Reed and Sue's firstborn child, because Franklin has the potential to grow into a being that can challenge Galactus. For those of you who don't know, Franklin Richards is an Omega level mutant who can alter reality and create new universes. He's so powerful that he makes Scarlet Witch look weak. Anyways, Galactus' rationale is that he wants to take out Franklin now as a baby before he becomes powerful enough to stop him. The big rumor is that Mr. Fantastic will either have to give up his child to save the world from Galactus, or save his son at the expense of letting his world die. Who knows, this may or may not be true. But if it is, I'd totally be down to see the story play out like that. Putting characters in situations where they have no choice but to compromise their moral integrity really puts their humanity at the forefront. And that's what we want to see. We want to see flawed, real, and human characters. Not these indestructible things that beat bad guys or whatever and tease the next chapter of the MCU. Anyways, those are my thoughts. But what do you think? Do you think the MCU can save itself from going downhill? What do you think the MCU has to do to course correct? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. As always, thanks a million for watching. Please be sure to give a like and subscribe to Reverb Comics so that you do not miss out on our awesome content. Stay groovy.